Let's bring in Ronan Lee now from London. He's a doctoral fellow at Loughborough University. So Ronan, give us your view of where we are now in Myanmar versus 1 year ago at the beginning of the coup.
Well, the underlying issues haven't changed. The situation 1 year ago was that the military launched a coup and the public wanted no part of it. The public in Myanmar do not want the military running their country. And that's the situation that exists today. The military remain in power because they've got the guns and they're prepared to use violence and terror and as much cruelty as is necessary to hang on to power. But the people don't want them and the people aren't prepared to work for them. That's why today tens of millions of people in Myanmar participated in a silent strike. They didn't go to work, they didn't appear on the street, they didn't go to the shops, they stayed in their homes, making clear to the military and to the international community that they do not want the military running their country. And that situation will continue. The people, it's been 12 months. I don't think the people are likely to be convinced by any more violence on the part of the military. They simply do not want the military running their country.
You know, we heard some strong words this week from the UN's High Commissioner on Human Rights, basically a call to action to the world to take concrete steps to do something to help the people of Myanmar. But what would those steps look like that could be effective to put pressure on the junta?
Be an arms embargo. It's absolutely ridiculous that the Myanmar military, that is clearly terrorizing its own people, can still buy arms. They can still buy guns and bullets and rockets. I mean, that needs to be imposed by the UN Security Council. That's their job. I mean, the Security Council is responsible for the safety of the world, and they're not doing their job. They're not making sure that the people of Myanmar are protected from a brutal military regime. And that's the first thing that should occur. There should also be steps towards accountability for the crimes of the Myanmar military. And the Security Council can once again refer those crimes to the International Criminal Court. I mean, that's a core responsibility of the UN Security Council. The military's had 12 months to embed its coup. It's had 12 months to convince the people of Myanmar to accept them, and the people aren't going to accept them. And using more violence, I don't think is going to convince the people of Myanmar. So it's time the international community stepped in, stopped the military buying guns and bullets and rockets, and took some steps towards accountability for their crimes.
We have seen some steps taken by several nations. The U.S., for example, imposed more sanctions. How effective they are, of course, is always debatable. But we heard an extremely pointed plea from the UN, from the former ambassador to the UN of Myanmar, just begging the world to do something. Why has so little action been taken?
I think there's a lack of political will. I mean, the people on the streets of Myanmar are determined to get the military out of power, but there's a lack of political will to engage within the country. I think for the West, there was a sense that this could be left in the hands of the regional body, ASEAN. But ASEAN is internally divided. It's a consensus-based organisation. It's not the organisation you go to for decisive action. I think the US was nervous about getting involved in a country that shares a 1,500-kilometre land border with China and also shares a border with India. And I think consequently, we saw paralysis at the United Nations Security Council. And the losers in all of that are ordinary people in Myanmar who have been terrorized by a brutal military regime.
I would say that the only action we've seen on the part of the junta that would be acceptable to Western countries that have criticized it would be releasing some, but very few, political prisoners, saying that it's open to cooperation on things like COVID-19 and the desire, at least, or giving lip service to potentially having an election in 2023. Is there any indication that they will indeed hold that election in a year?
Well, the prisoner release was a scam. I mean, the military has arrested 15,000 people since they launched the coup. They released some. in an effort to get better international media attention and to look good. But they have, in fact, rearrested some of the people that they've released, and they continue to arrest people. I don't think it's possible to have a plausible election held in Myanmar under conditions of terror like the country faces today. There was an election in 2020 that the military launched a coup because they didn't like the result. The reality for the military in Myanmar is that every time there's been an election, a free election in that country, the military's proxy party is overwhelmingly rejected by the voters. The voters are not going to vote for a military proxy party, and the military can't deal with that, and that's why they launched a coup. I can't imagine how you could have a free election in conditions where the leader of the political, Aung San Suu Kyi, the leader of the political party that was the overwhelming victors of the election held in fact, November 2020, is in jail and has been held incommunicado. She's been sentenced to 6 years in jail in a sham court process within Myanmar that was run by the military. So talk of future elections, I think, will be seen by the people of Myanmar for what it is, another scam and an excuse by the military to try and hang on to power for a little bit longer, suggesting that in the future things will be better. I mean, what needs to happen here is that the will of the people needs to be paramount. They expressed that in a free election held in November 2020. The military didn't accept that. A military-run election won't be acceptable to the people, and the only outcome that I think will be acceptable to Myanmar's 55 million people is the military getting out of politics.
Yeah, it's difficult to see where this is going to go, short of civil war. Ronan Lee, excellent points. Great to have you on.
Pleasure.